Bookaholics, this is Isabel and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be talking about One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Casey McQuiston. I always say her name wrong. So I received this book from NetGalley for an honest review, and I was so excited that I was picked to read this book early because this is one of my most anticipated reads of 2021, and it did not disappoint. So I'm really excited to talk about this book, so let's get right into it. So one of the questions that I had before I started reading One Last Stop is, which book would be better? So that was one of the first questions I wanted to answer once I finished this book, because Red, White, and Royal Blue is one of my absolute favorite romance novels. It's such an adorable book. I loved it, and it's one of my absolute top favorite books of all time because it's just so adorable and so wonderful. So when I heard about One Last Stop, I was so excited because the premise is such an interesting idea. So this book follows August, who is a 23-year-old girl, and she has kind of lived her life a bit in isolation because her mom is very obsessed of solving her brother's disappearance. August was definitely like the Veronica Mars type person. She helped her mom try to solve the mystery of her brother's disappearance. So she knew how to pick locks, she knew how to get files away from people, she knew how to distract people, and she knew how to find people. So she knew all this going into New York City. But she decided to leave because she was done helping her mom find her brother, because this has been her life and she never really made any friends. She never really felt like she had a life. So she's been running away trying to find a home. So this book starts with August arriving in New York City and interviewing for this room that is available. And so we meet Nico, Mila, and Wes. Sorry to interrupt, but I realized while editing I didn't actually tell you what this book is about. So, One Last Stop follows August when she moves to New York City, and she goes on this subway and she meets this girl named Jane. And as she keeps running into her on this subway, she realizes she sees her every time she comes in the subway. Wouldn't there be some times where they don't cross paths? So then she starts questioning this, not really understanding what's going on, and then she learns that Jane is displaced from the 1970s and is stuck on the subway. So then it just follows them as they are trying to solve this mystery of why Jane is stuck on the subway, and slowly they start becoming more attracted to each other, and it just becomes cute. It's a cute novel and I absolutely loved it. So that is the premise of this book. I'm sorry I forgot to describe it for you guys. I just got so excited and fangirling about this book and getting into the actual review. So sorry about that. That's the premise of this book, so let's just get back into it. I think one of the best things about this book was the relationships and the friendships and just everything about this quirky little family that August finds. It's probably one of my absolute favorite parts of this whole book. I felt like every character was developed well, and it was such a wonderful group of people. So we had Nico, who was a transgender man. We had Mila, who was just like a quirky artist. We had Wes, who was a gay man who has been kind of disowned by his family. We had Isaiah, who is a drag queen. We have the other main character, Jane, who is a lesbian and a Asian character who is displaced from the 70s. So she lived in a world where gay rights were not a thing, and that she had to work for everything that she had. So we follow all these different characters. Like, there's just so many representations in here, and I absolutely loved it. And then August we have, who's bisexual. Like, we have a transgender man, we have a drag queen, we have gays, we have a bisexual, we have lesbian character. Like, we have so many representations in here, and I absolutely love it. And that just like one of my favorites. I also really loved the build up towards here because although this premise seems kind of hard to execute, Casey McQuiston does it flawlessly. Like, it just makes so much sense. Considering that Jane is displaced from the 1970s and stuck on the subway, you think that it would be kind of hard to execute and hard to make it actually make sense, but she does it quite well. And honestly, their romance is so adorable. And one of the things that I liked about this is that it wasn't just a romance. Like, it wasn't just focused on the romance. There was a focus on the friendships, the relationships between all the different characters, but it was also focused on August finding herself. At the beginning, August doesn't really know who she is. She doesn't know who she wants to be, and she's honestly scared about a lot of stuff. Throughout this whole book, she is slowly learning more about herself as she's slowly opening up to Jane and becoming more of herself and finding her home. And I absolutely love that aspect of this book, and I thought it was so wonderful and amazing. So yeah, I don't want to say too much because obviously the book isn't out yet. It comes out in June 1st, so I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to give anything away. But one of the top things that I actually really loved about this book is it also focused on the fact that Jane is displaced from the 1970s, and the 1970s weren't a nice place for the gays. Like, it just wasn't. So she's kind of learning about the 21st century and learning about all this stuff and all the progress that the gays have made, and she is just flabbergasted and excited, and it's just wonderful to see how her world was before she was displaced on the subway and learning how her world could be based on which side she wants to come out of in this story. So I absolutely loved this book. It was such a wonderful story, and I love the romance. I loved all the friendships and all the relationships and just like the adventures that they go on and the kind of struggles and all the doubt and everything. It just honestly was perfect, and I love following these characters, and it was just such a fun story to follow. Now it's time to answer that question I had before I finished One Last Stop, and that is, which one was better? Was Red, White, and Royal Blue better? Or did One Last Stop beat it out of the running? That is the whole question, and I'm going to try not to cop out here because Red, White, and Royal Blue and One Last Stop have different strengths and weaknesses. Red, White, and Royal Blue is mostly focused on the romance between Alex and Henry. Alex and Henry's romance is such a wonderful story to follow. I loved as they were enemies to lovers, and then as they became more closer and had to struggle through all of the press and the attention they were getting once their relationship came out. And so we're following that. We're following their struggle and their openness to each other and their willingness to actually fight for the love for each other. So that is what Red, White, and Royal Blue mostly focuses on. Well, One Last Stop didn't just focus on the romance between August and Jane. It focused on the friendships between August and her roommates and August and her co-workers, and it focused on August itself, where she had come to know herself a little bit more and opened up to who she is and who she wants to be, and like she just kind of came to herself throughout this whole book. And that makes these totally different books in my mind, because One Last Stop is not just a romance, while Red, White, and Royal Blue was a romance where they came to themselves together. So I don't know, it's really hard to choose which one was better and which one I liked more. But if I had to put it based on the enjoyability and how much I enjoyed reading it, I think the one who would win would be Red, White, and Royal Blue. I cannot let this one go. Red, White, and Royal Blue is just my heart. I love Alex and Henry. They are just such the sweetest couple, and I loved following their relationship so much. But I also loved following August's relationship with pretty much everyone in this book. Like, I love the relationship between her and Jane, but I also love the friendship between her and Nico, and her and Mila, and her and Wes, and her and everyone. Honestly, it was just such a wonderful story to follow, and I loved following August. And honestly, if I had to choose which character I liked the most between Red, White, and Royal Blue and One Last Stop, I would have to say August is more of my favorite character, while I found that Alex and Henry were my favorite love interests. So like, they both have their weaknesses and their faults, and they both have things that I love about them and that make it a little bit better than the other. But honestly, overall, I would have to say Red, White, and Royal Blue is better, just because it's got my heart, okay? It's got it. It has it. It won't let go. One Last Stop is also so wonderful. It's definitely worth the hype, and I cannot wait for everyone to read it on June 1st. So yeah, I'm really excited for you guys to read this, and I hope you guys enjoyed my review. I think I've done fangirling now. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this review. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. So bye!